Hey, welcome to the Road and Morale podcast. So do you ever feel like screaming out in the office, on Zoom or outside the school gates? For the love of God, come on, really? Then if this is you and you're looking for an honest, fun and frank podcast on life and business, then sit back and listen to me, Rona Morale. I'll be bringing great people on the show to talk, share and debate their life experiences and business challenges, keeping the show unpolished, but in a fun and unique British style, with sarcasm, tenacity, or maybe a few swear words or tears. This podcast keeps it real, honest, raw, and removes the bullshit in the only way I know how, through authenticity and getting shit done. Think of it less like the Housewives of New York or Towie with the lipo and drama, and more like the house lives of the real world. I hope you'll take something away to be better informed, laugh, smile, or maybe even finally getting the confidence to shout, come on really. So enjoy. Hey Geeta, how are you? Welcome to the Road and Morale podcast.
Thank you so much, Rona, for having me. I'm really well. Lovely to be here.
Oh, amazing. It's a pleasure to have you. And for those listening in, I am delighted to introduce you to Geeta. We first met a couple of years ago at a leadership breakfast. And from the moment Geeta got up and started talking, I was just like, absolute woman after my own heart. And so I'm delighted that she's agreed to join me. Now, Geeta is a 5-time winner of Entrepreneur and Businesswoman of the Year, and has successfully developed the new business, which is Nosh Detox, which you can find out more about on the website. And also, during the previous years that we've been through, you've retrained in the area of coaching, and specifically with women and driving their succession plans. And I know that many women who've gone through that program with you have come out with the words like transformational and life-changing. So I would love to talk to you about that today and give the listeners an insight into some of the things that you do and why you took that journey.
Thank you. That would be lovely. I'd like to speak pretty much my favorite topic. I can literally blurt for Britain on that one, and we'll just close me down at the end, shall we?
I will.
Well, because, I used to be a corporate lawyer, and my son becoming ill completely transformed my career into being one in health and wellness, because not because I cared about health and wellness in any way, and I absolutely hate cooking, just to say, but I really cared about my son. I really cared that there was apparently no cure for his problems, which was asthmatic anaphylaxis. And I was like, I just don't believe that. Mm-hmm. And then I really cared about healthy eating and the difference that could make to him. So I kind of come from that school of thought. So people come and have dinner with me, and it got to the stage a few years ago where people would be looking at what I was ordering, and I'd be the one with the martini and the chips, and I'm like, I eat healthy 90% of the time, so that the time I'm eating the martini, even if it's every night for a week, I can do that. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't do it every night for a week, but you know what I mean? So it was that. Then I wasn't expecting this transition. And this came about because I had so many clients that kept coming in, and all my clients are women. About 98% of my 15,000 clients are women. So that's shed loads of women. Yeah. And they're all professional women, they're corporate executives, they're women leaders, they're CEOs. And they would come in and go, I really hate my weight, I hate my body. And I'm looking at these incredibly beautiful women. I'm like, how would you like to lose weight? I can cut your toenails, and we could cut some hair off. There we go. Because I just, you're like, do you understand how good looking you are? Yeah. And they didn't. And they were successful, Rona. That was the really annoying thing. Deeply successful, and just didn't believe in themselves. So, and we're very female, that as a problem. Mm. And it used to drive me nuts. And I was like, this is just like my son. How do I, and I hate people feeling bad about themselves. It really is a kind of a trigger in my brain to have fix. I'm just like, no, I can see how amazing you are. Why can't you see how amazing you are? And so it came from that. And so I went and retrained about 5-6 years ago as a health coach. Then I retrained as a gut health coach, then as a hormone health coach. So I did all of that stuff. And you kind of then start, what it's like with your podcast, you do something and you're kind of over here. Mm. And then as you keep doing it, you evolve into a different version, like your show changes. And I sort of evolved into being the person where what I do is I help professional women who have constantly failed at dieting to understand the belief systems that are keeping them stuck, and how to rewire those belief systems so that they feel strong and they feel healthy and then they feel body confident. So that's what I do. And it's taken me a really long journey to get there, because I just knew I wanted them to feel amazing, but I couldn't work out how you described it and what I did. I just knew they felt brilliant at the end, you know. But you've got to be able to kind of tell people what, and that's sort of specifically it. And so then that's kind of what I've started to focus on, because it's what I love.
Excellent. And so before we dive into that a bit more, tell me a little bit more about Nosh Detox, because I think that again really came about through the journey and the story with your son. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
100%. Yes, because as I said, I may be a foodie as such, but I'm really not a cook. And he was allergic to dairy, gluten, fish, egg, and nuts. I was divorced and I had 3 kids, a very, very bad divorce. We ended up penniless and without anywhere to live. As somebody was saying to me, you weren't homeless, you were houseless. I was like, exactly, I was houseless. And I had to find a way, you know, what it's like to put 3 kids through school and to feed them, clothe them, minor little things like that. And then one child who kept dying on me every time, literally, if something wouldn't work. And so it was just really crappy, honestly. And I wasn't very old and I didn't really have infrastructure and I had no family that was around to help me. So I was like, right, I'm going to work from home and I'm going to set up a business. How hard can this be? So I set up as a consultant because the only thing I wanted to do was make money. And it's fascinating how much poverty is such a great driver of innovation, right?
Yeah.
So, and we were really poor. We were really, really not funnily poor, very, very poor. And having been incredibly well off, but nobody knows how to hide money like a really well off person. So I started to do consulting work because I had my legal skills. I would help people negotiate contracts and I would do lots of corporate negotiation. I was telling my younger daughter this because she doesn't remember much of it. And I was like, yeah, I was in Riyadh one week and then I was in Dubai the next week and then I was in Belarus the week after that and I had to stop. Tanzania, and it was, you know, just helping to negotiate contracts for telecom, just that, you know, The Pursuit of Happiness, the film.
Yeah.
Exactly what I did. And it was how fast can I get out? And I used to front load my contracts. If I got out in 1 day, you paid me the most. If I got out in 10 days, you paid me the least. And that's what I did for a living. So when I saw that film, I just wept all the way through it because it was my life. And everybody else loved it. And I was just like, oh, you know. And then I thought, you know, I'm not building anything. And I want to build something. I want to stay here. I want to live with the children because they wept every time I left and they wept when I came back. And oh, it was awful. And you're like all single mothers, you're on your way to the airport. My ex would be like, I'm not picking up the kids. And I'm like, I'm literally 4 minutes from Heathrow. I'm literally booked in to fly to somewhere where there's no telephone. I don't really know. Tough. You're going to have to work it out. And I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I thought, what do I know how to do? And I was like, food, really, because I know how to make people healthy. And so I set up the first ever delivery of, I mean, it sounds so funny now with Deliveroo, but the first ever delivery of dairy, gluten-free food across London. And then it took us a few months. Then we went across the United Kingdom. So I did that in 2007 as a prototype. And then I kind of gave up doing everything else. And in 2008, that then became my job. And then Nosh evolved. So then in 2008, somebody came in and said, I'm really struggling keeping medicine down because she had chronic fatigue. So we invented the juices because my son had problems with keeping down spirulina because it tastes like pondweed. But everybody has problems keeping. And then we kind of evolved out of that. And then it became the business that it is today, which is where we deliver health products to your door. So we deliver food and we deliver juices and IV drips and anything that you need, we send.
No, well, thank you for that. I just thought it'd be worthwhile kind of going through that because that is obviously a huge part of your journey. But then that obviously led on to all of your clients and this common theme. So one of the things that I always resonated with you was your energy, your directness and kind of passion and how are you working with women? Because you talked there about, you know, that consistently failing with diets, and let's be honest, I think every woman can go, yeah, been there, done that. So how are you helping them long term versus this peaks and troughs of kind of binging, I guess?
So what you have to try and get women to understand is that firstly, we think that we're failures, right? This is the problem, because we look at all these systems and we look at Weight Watchers and we look at dieting and we look at all of this stuff. And it was interesting. We had a company that interviewed us a couple of months ago, and she said, you're one of the very, very few companies that doesn't talk about dieting and weight loss and pain on your website. And I'm like, because I hate it so much. I really hate it. And the thing is that what we do is we are so incredibly busy. We have so much to do. So we stack our days with as much as possible. And then our calendars become aspirational. They don't become the thing we have to do. And then, because we don't get through all of it for whatever reason, we think we're the failure.
Yeah.
And then apply that in a place where you're successful, like at work, to your private life. And you're like, I'm going to diet tomorrow. And I'm going to eat 7 calories all day. And you're like, okay. So I've done 10 hours of work. I've got 3 hours with the children. My mother fell over. Just take my life as an example. You know, we've had the most horrendous 10 days. My daughter's best friend died, you know, which was just awful. My son lost the job he was supposed to be going to. My daughter's A-levels, 10 days. My daughter's A-levels went on, went off, went on, went off. She now has to take 5 exams per subject. We'll pick the best one. And then my 87-year-old mother fell over. Oh, and you're looking at that and you're like, now, what would that be like if I was only trying to eat 7 calories a day or whatever the equivalent is? Really, what do you think the chances of me failing would be?
Exceptionally high.
And I'm really nothing special, right?
Yeah.
Every woman has these issues in their version. So now, what the heck is the point of using a system like Weight Watchers, like any of these ones? I'm not just picking on Weight Watchers, it's just what I remember, Slim Fast, all of that crap. When in fact, what I need is massive amounts of energy, huge amounts of focus, calm. I need strength, I need to be healthy, and I need to be energized just to cope with that life. Never mind me and my needs, because I haven't even listed there anything I care about.
Yeah.
And honestly, again, I'm nothing special. You have this, I have this, and there's another 20 million women out there struggling. If we're lucky, we're struggling with these issues.
Yeah.
That's the thing to remember as well, if we're lucky. And it absolutely drives me batty, because how can you, how I am not setting myself up to succeed. That's like saying, to give you the work equivalent, it's like never doing laundry, not having the children's school uniforms ready, having no food in the house, and not having any cash or cards to get to work and saying, I'm going to go to work tomorrow and do a good day's job. What are the chances?
But it's amazing how, as individuals, we really prioritize and nail it in the work environment, but we just don't with ourselves.
But that's because, and so what we do with this is we take people through a process called the belief identify system, which took me forever to work out, because if you think about it, we're all bloody intelligent and we're all a bit pissy about, you know, well, hello, my life's working. And you have to kind of get past that to the issue behind you're laughing because it's true. And so we take people into the system where we say, look, here are your external beliefs and here are your internal beliefs. And we take them into quadrants so that they understand actions and beliefs externally and internally. And it is the most interesting thing, because when you put people through the system, you'll see that in the external activity section, you're a super alpha overachiever. And then in the unconscious belief section,
yeah.
There's someone in there wailing, trying to get out.
Just, as you're talking, I'm just going, yeah.
So I'll give you an example. When let me think. I have a client and she is extremely successful. I mean, this is the interesting thing. It's because the more successful we get as women, the less we think. You wouldn't think you had a problem with your self-esteem or your confidence or anything, right? So I have a client who actually rang me up and went, I've just eaten an entire cake. I was like, lovely, what was it? She's like, that's not the point. I was like, oh shit, because I really quite like vanilla. And she's just like, no, I've just eaten the whole cake. And it was for my children and they're really upset with me. And it's really interesting because if you, for example, we take her, she grew up with extremely critical parents. And the only place she got nourishment from her parents was when she was fed, because they didn't approve of anything else that she did. So when she was fed is when she got nourishment. And what she has grown up into is the person, because they always talk about these languages of love. And I'm telling you that there are not, that book is very optimistic. It's just rubbish. Let's talk about these languages of love.
Yeah.
So this poor girl, woman, has this very narrow concept of how she can accept love, because she was only ever given food as nourishment. When she wants to self-nourish, i.e. self-love, it's actually food that she can accept love in, because everything else is her problem. So she can't accept it. So she's only allowed to accept love because it's from food, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're only allowed to accept love from food, you have this terribly narrow parameter, but you're desperate for love and approval and self-care. What do? You eat down into it.
Yeah.
Can you see? So
yeah,
what you do is you eat loads of food because you want loads of love. Because where you're getting it, it's too narrow, because it's pinned in place by guilt and shame, and kind of the bolts are made out of pain, almost, this infrastructure.
Yeah. Why do you think then that, because that totally resonates in terms of where, as when you think back to your own lives, of where you grow up and where love comes in, and in what form is it? Parental, is it friendship?
Well, then, okay, just 1 second. Then how about if we replace food with approval?
Yes.
How about if we replace, so the other category of clients is the ones where you've got to achieve. No, darling, that's just not good enough. Why didn't you come home with 100% and only 98%? Just work harder. If only you'd been a boy.
Yeah.
And what do? Love becomes a very narrow parameter, which is all about approval. So in order to get more love, you struggle and fight for more approval.
Yes. Which again, in the own rights, if you're putting all the energy into that, you're not putting the energy into the right areas of nourishment.
No, because you don't know how to. I mean, you also don't even know you're doing this, because until I told you were doing this, you didn't know you were doing this. And I don't see anyone saying this stuff. I'm literally the only person that says this stuff, mainly because I had to work my way out of it myself. So what actually happens is that when you're teaching yourself something, you're teaching yourself what you need to learn. And it took me years to work this stuff out until I knew it well enough to teach it.
Yeah. And so can you then therefore self-reflect in a way and pick those journeys that what was that definitive moment when you knew you could teach this versus I'm taking myself through it?
I think that when you find someone who's struggling with it, and then what you're doing when they're struggling with it is that you think, okay, I'm going to give a solution to them. And then the more you do, because I now do 2-3 of these a day, you kind of become quite skilled at the whole process. And then you start thinking, right, what's going to be next? How do I do it next? And what can I do to help?
Have you ever had, I guess, in that journey and the years that you've been doing it, do you often, like any brand or product where you have to innovate and evolve, is it always the same kind of quadrants and things, or are there occasional times where you go, oh shit, not thought of that one, or I've not heard of that one, that nourishment?
I mean, it's always going to be a place where people fit into your strategic overall parameters. Okay, let me say it differently. I find that the way we live today, the more successful women become, the more we're struggling with our inner self-esteem and self-confidence. And how, listen to what I've just said happened to me in 10 days. Where in there, if you weren't someone like me that actually focused on health, where would you have put your self-care? How would you give self-love? How would you look after yourself?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't, because I guess, when you very first started, you said about, I've not even thought about myself or my self-care, because as women, we naturally want to solve and give. And therefore, how do you address that balance of always focusing on others rather than yourself?
So I was very lucky when I learned this, because I was a single parent. And I was a single parent from when I've been a single parent my entire adult life, really. So because my youngest was a year old. And because I was married to an alcoholic, there wasn't much parenting before that either. So I've just pretty much been a single parent. And then there was a day about a year and a half, 2 years into this sort of journey where I actually, I always try new things. There was a supplement and I had some and I was wildly allergic to it because I'm my guinea pig for everything. And I ended up in bed throwing up for like 2.5 days.
Gosh.
And not, and I'm fine because I have 3 kids and what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so at least if I'm dying, but in the house, I can see what's happening and then we're fine kind of thing. And by the 3rd day, they had to call an ambulance to come and get me. And I ended up in the hospital with a drip. And the nurse is like, right, I'll come back in an hour. And I'm heaving with tears going, no, I've got to go. I've got to pick up the kids from school. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I've got to go pick the kids up from school. There is no one else. And she's like, you can't go. I'm like, I can't stay.
Yeah.
Again, how many millions of women is this?
Yeah.
And I came out of there and I realized that if I died, the only people that would be able to look after my children would be my ex-husband or my mother. And I really was willing to live so that neither of those things happened.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that, but I think that is such a moment where that is your choice.
Yeah. So
and you're going to rip the IV drip out and you're going to get home.
Yeah. There is no other choice. And so I never, ever, I've had some really great ups and downs. What I took away from them is learn the bloody lesson when it's in front of you and learn it well and learn it forever. I learned it well. I learned it forever. I prioritize my revenue stream and my time and I prioritize my health.
Right.
Everything around me is set up for my health to be 100% at its optimal.
And that just sounds like, it seems like a dream in the sense of when you're always putting others at the forefront and you're always, you're not doing
if you die, who's going to do it?
Exactly. And it's like, for those people listening now, it's like, how do we get to that point where actually that self-preservation and that health becomes just inherently part of what we do?
Well, I don't know if we ever get there. What I do know is that the language for saying that is I'm trying to lose weight. I always fail at diets. I never succeed. I feel like shit. Please help me. Yeah. So I've learned that is the translation from Korean to German for the woman who says, I'm struggling.
Yeah, help. And do you find that through the process of a lot of the work that you do with your clients, that there are the inherent additional benefits from doing this? So when you nail it with a client and you've got their health at the forefront, what are the other things that they come back and then say, do you know what, this and this?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Honestly, it's really unbelievable, because it's like saying my shoes are going to be comfortable and pretty and sexy and go with my outfit. Do you know what I mean? That's what it's like.
Yeah.
Because you come out of there with such a version of your best self that you honestly were like, oh, I mean, I was talking to a client yesterday and she is so senior and her husband divorced her. Right. He walked out on her and was like 3 kids and she's the breadwinner and and we're 6 sessions in. And she said to me yesterday, she goes, you know what it is? Because she's so funny. She's actually becoming better looking every session. So I'm like, oh, Blondie, how you doing? And she's like, I don't even know what to tell you. She's like, this stuff has changed my life so much. It's even improved my sex life. And it's funny, think about it. Well, no, and let me tell you how many husbands and boyfriends ring up and pay for the women's coaching.
Interesting.
About 4 sessions in, you get a call and you're like, I'm the husband of, and I'm laughing at this stage because you do not have good sex when you feel fat and ugly.
No.
In fact, you're not having any sex when you feel fat and ugly. Let's be really clear about this.
And actually, and that's the key word, when you think you are. You probably, most of the time, you're not.
Every single woman, Rona, and I say to them, and what does your partner think? Oh, he doesn't care at all. He loves how I look. And I'm like, oh my God, seriously, it breaks my heart. Can you see how I'm so passionate about this?
Yeah.
And it changes everything, because when you women are not used like men to feeling strong and feeling powerful, and they are really uncomfortable about it. And so when you say feel powerful, women go, yeah, but I don't want to be like a man. And I'm like, you know what? I'm a girl and I'm a woman and I'm very feminine and I'm incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
I'm extremely strong. But I'm just not in your face about it. It's about me and my power for my purposes. So
Yeah.
I it's only weak people that shove themselves on you, right? So the transformation, when you can nail your unconscious beliefs, when you can nail the fact that you're just repeating the same mistakes because you think you can only get love in only one way, when you can nail the fact that you just have zero bloody boundaries because everybody thought you shouldn't have boundaries when you were young, just smile, sweetie. And when you eat like shit because you think you should be on a diet since you were 14 years old, all of that stuff does not make you healthy. What it does is make you a deeply successful, very insecure, focused, committed commodity that makes shitloads of money and looks after everyone around you.
I don't really know what to say after that, because honestly, that's probably the best summary of most of my friends' womanhood, and that's an amazing kind of statement and a fact and a reality that is it. It's true.
And I'll tell you what, my absolute goal is to transform, and I'll do you a deal on the coaching, sweetie. My absolute, and any listener from you, my absolute goal is to do this. I worked out that if I could take 1 million women and give them the sense of self-confidence and power, nice, calm power, I could change the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do. 1 million women. They're like, oh, I'll go for 10. Just give me 1 million women that I can make feel that they rock.
Yeah.
The world has already changed because it's your tipping point.
Yeah. And actually that 1 million women will very easily turn into 10 million when that becomes the new legacy, the new way of working.
And it's
that
4 to 5 million kids. Because you estimate around 4 kids per person, because I'm chair of a charity that funds women in business, some of the poorest women in the world, Microloan Foundation. Little plug, please feel free to donate.
Oh, thank you.
For every woman that we give a loan of like 25, 30, 40 pounds to, 4 kids.
And that's nothing, £40.
Nothing. And I look at these poor women. They're the poorest women in the world. They live off less than £1 a day, less than $1 a day. And, and we help them set up businesses and free them, because the only difference, Rona, between those women and me is geography,
Exactly. And you said earlier, there's no better place for innovation, creativity and passion than when you've got nothing.
Yeah.
And the way I reflect to that is when I was traveling when I was younger and I had no money, no assets, nothing. And I've never been so happy in my life.
You see, yeah, I have to tell you, money makes me super happy. Let's just be really clear. Just be super clear. I'm like with Marilyn Monroe. If I'm going to cry, can it be in a Ferrari? But having been very poor, having not been able to feed the children, having not been able to buy shoes, I once wore the same 2 pairs of shoes for, 8 months. And we know people do that. We don't know people that we're talking to do that. And we were incredibly poor. So I am very comfortably driven by the fact that I enjoy making money.
Yeah.
And that when I make money, I'm happy. I'm not only happy if I make money, and it isn't the root of all my happiness, but oh my God, I like making money.
Because you've passionately put a strong balance between business, making money, the family, the nourishment, the health side. And I guess it's that utopia, and it always feels like it's not achievable. But I think that's made by our own limitations.
What's not achievable?
That, very much that. Like, how do we, as everyday women, find that balance between the income, the lifestyle, mother, or even if you haven't got children, that you time, and then also the health, what you put in, and both from a gut perspective and food, but also the mind.
So I can make that very easy for you. The thing is, you don't actually get balance. That's really not your goal. Your goal is to prioritize. Right. And then your goal, and we teach a balance sheet system, which is phenomenal, where we teach you in the coaching. Well, I never thought this when I started, but I tell you, a huge segment of the coaching is to teach women how to manage their time, themselves, their lives, their priorities, and how to do what they're doing. And one of the little giveaways from it is always do 2% less every single day, just as a little bonus there. You don't, the balance sheet that I teach works like this. There is no such thing as balance. You treat a week in a week, and then you have every single week, a day, I can't speak. Look at the week and then pick every day as a profit and loss account.
Right.
So that you don't have to win every single day. You have to win over the week.
Yeah.
So I open up my week and I literally go in. And I mean, and if you struggle with this, literally phone me because I'll do it with you. And I put in my priorities. So what goes into my week at any, and we make people print them out, and there's these amazing women earning 5 million a year printing off their little sheets, and you print off your sheet and you put yourself in first.
Right.
You put yourself in first. Now, isn't this a miracle? Because that never happens.
I've never, ever, ever done that, ever.
No. And you've probably never heard it either, because you're supposed to put in meditation or some shit like that. But no, you put yourself in. I put myself in my calendar first, and it's immutable. I put in my workouts. I put in what my food is always kind of sorted but I put in when it's doing. My IV drip goes in there. When I'm going to do a cleanse, if I'm going to do a cleanse, or, you know, everything that I need to keep me sane is the first thing that goes in my list.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing that goes in my list is the things, then the children's fit into mine. That's sort of the kid stuff next, right?
Yeah.
So my assistant, the children know my assistant as well as my assistant, the children, because I'm like, just tell her. Yeah. So that goes in. Then what goes in is work.
Yeah.
And then when work's gone in, then I put in my social life.
Right.
Well, because who had one, right? So I used to do it differently, but like, you know, shoot me. And so that's how I fit it in. And so if you look at that, what I'm doing is balancing it.
Yeah.
Across a week, but I'm not balancing it at all. I'm prioritizing.
Yeah, that's a really, that fundamentally shifts the kind of the thought process. And I genuinely have never gone into my diary at the start of a week, and it's always been, got to work on this client, got to do this, I've got to do that. And I guess the only way I resonate with it now is that's one of the reasons why I went out on my own as a consultant, because I was forever running my agenda to somebody else. And so I feel like I've taken that step in terms of my own business, but I haven't quite achieved the balance on the me
But
side.
I mean, I do this with companies now. Like I teach companies to do this. I will go in, we have one client where their head of M&A, because she's in charge of all their joint ventures. And she came in doing that and had the worst diary I've ever seen. So we went into her diary. I'm like, just do a calendar share. Let's look at this. Why do we do this? You know, and it was like she had run written twice a week. And I'm like, you're never running on that day. Look at that calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why is it still there? Because I set up a running group. Okay. Are you going to run together? No. So why do you care if you go or you don't? What is a good day to run this day? What is, you know, so you go through what the reality of your life is.
Yes.
And you know, the thing I've learned is to just cut myself so much bloody slack. Like when I looked at last week, and I had to be there for the children, and you're literally as happy as your unhappiest child. And it was honestly absolutely bloody awful. And I gave up working out for 5 days.
Yeah, but with all that going on.
Physically, no, but grief is actually very hard on the body. Yeah. And I could feel I was struggling. So I didn't go and work out because oh, yay, I'm struggling. Let's hurt myself. That's stupid. So I stopped. I literally stopped. And then I thought my life would be massively improved with chocolate. So I acquired chocolate, you know. I was like, okay.
Big slab of dairy milk.
You know, but you do, when you embody, which is because you occupy your space, because you are the priority, then these things are available to you.
And I think that's really key when you were talking earlier about that realization in the hospital about if something happens to me. And that's the burning point. Again, whether you've got children and you're blessed with them or not, you know, the what if something happens to you is far greater consequence to those around you than you skipping that meeting in the office or, you know, me helping you to do a podcast. But it's so true.
It is. But also, like this woman with the JV, I taught her that now There isn't. She doesn't have a meeting now unless somebody turns up and has sent her an agenda and has sent her all the materials for that meeting. It's transformed her life. She's decided when she has meetings and when she doesn't. She's gone to her boss and said, look, this system really works. Can you do this? He was like, oh my God. And he paid for her coaching.
Yeah.
Because she changed. Then she had JV contributors. And I was like, okay, well, having been a lawyer, and she's like, I'm going to kill this man because he's not following the system. I was like, phenomenal. Here's a collaboration agreement. Get him to sign it and get him to agree that every third party that he works with signs it too.
Yeah.
You know? So having been in business and having worked in the city I understand the mentality. So it's not like I'm going to give it all up. No, this is how we make a living.
Yeah.
You don't give it up, but you do understand that if you're the breadwinner and you die, shit's going to get real.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Let's not have that happen. And even worse than dying, honestly, is being bedridden.
Oh God, that puts the fear of God into me. Yeah, no, another topic for another time, but I genuinely, dignity in dying, hand me a gun, I'm done. Like I couldn't do that.
That's the worst thing, because you're helpless and you're stuck. And it's my idea of absolute hell.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
my mother at 87 works out an hour every day. Poor mother, but she'll get over it.
Oh, what does she do?
Everything. She'll do a bit of yoga, a bit of cardio, a bit of whatever she does, because she fell over. When she fell over, because she does a cleanse every week, she didn't break anything. She didn't, there's no hip replacement. Yeah. She's in bed with a twisted pelvis or something. And I'm like, hooray. Look on the bright side. She's 87. She didn't break a thing.
Oh, bless her. Well, listen, regards to your mum. I hope she makes a proper recovery.
It'll be fine. She's deeply irritating and she's not going anywhere. She's an Indian mother. She's literally, it's all over the place.
Well, listen, Geeta, I could just talk to you forever on this, but I'm going to make a promise to myself, I think, at the end of this session, and this is one of the reasons why I love these podcasts, is that I'm going to commit to take at least one piece of the advice around, prioritizing me in my calendar. And I am actually going to try that next week by just putting in me first. So thank you for sharing all of those tips and that passion. And for anyone listening, please reach out to Geeta. You can find her on Insta, socials, there's the website for Detox as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. I've absolutely
such a pleasure. It was so much fun. Thank you.
Very welcome. Thanks, Geeta.
Thanks.
So that's it. You've made it. The show's over. Thank you for being with us. I hope you've been able to take something away, maybe solve a problem, or just know you're not alone. Here's hoping it made you smile with a few laughs along the way. Please feel free to find me on all social media channels, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search the Rona Morel podcast. Have an awesome day and see you next time.